Section 9 of State of the Union Addresses by United States Presidents, 1923 to 1932. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mike Manalakis. Section 9. Calvin Coolidge, December 4th, 1928, Part 1. To the Congress of the United States. No Congress of the United States ever assembled on surveying the state of the Union has met with a more pleasing prospect than that which appears at the present time. In the domestic field, there is tranquility and contentment, harmonious relations between management and wage earner, freedom from industrial strife, and the highest record of years of prosperity. In the foreign field, there is peace, the goodwill which comes from mutual understanding, and the knowledge that the problems which a short time ago appeared so ominous are yielding to the touch of manifest friendship. The great wealth created by our enterprise and industry, and saved by our economy, has had the widest distribution among our own people, and has gone out in a steady stream to serve the charity and the business of the world. The requirements of existence have passed beyond the standard of necessity into the region of luxury. Enlarging production is consumed by an increasing demand at home and an expanding commerce abroad. The country can regard the present with satisfaction and anticipate the future with optimism. The main source of these unexampled blessings lies in the integrity and character of the American people. They have had great faith, which they have supplemented with mighty works. They have been able to put trust in each other and trust in their government. Their candor in dealing with foreign governments has commanded respect and confidence. Yet these remarkable powers would have been exerted almost in vain without the constant cooperation and careful administration of the federal government. We have been coming into a period which may be fairly characterized as a conservation of our national resources. Wastefulness in public business and private enterprise has been displaced by constructive economy. This has been accomplished by bringing our domestic and foreign relations more and more under a reign of law. A rule of force has been giving way to a rule of reason. We have substituted for the vicious circle of increasing expenditures, increasing tax rates, and diminishing profits, the charmed circle of diminishing expenditures, diminishing tax rates, and increasing profits. 4 times we have made a drastic revision of our internal revenue system, abolishing many taxes and substantially reducing almost all others. Each time the resulting stimulation to business has so increased taxable incomes and profits that a surplus has been reduced. 1/3 of the national debt has been paid, while much of the other 2/3 has been refunded at lower rates. And these savings of interest and constant economies have enabled us to repeat the satisfying process of more tax reductions. Under this sound and healthful encouragement, the national income has increased nearly 50% until it is estimated to stand well over $90 billion. It has been a method which has performed the seeming miracle of leaving a much greater percentage of earnings in the hands of the taxpayers, with scarcely any diminution of the government revenue. That is constructive economy in the highest degree. It is the cornerstone of prosperity. It should not fail to be continued. This action began by the application of economy to public expenditure. If it is to be permanent, it must be made so by the repeated application of economy. There is no surplus on which to base further tax revision at this time. Last June, the estimates showed a threatened deficit for the current fiscal year of $94 million. Under my direction, the departments began saving all they could out of their present appropriations. The last tax reduction brought an encouraging improvement in business beginning early in October, which will also increase our revenue. The combination of economy and good times now indicates a surplus of about $37 million. This is a margin of less than 1% on our expenditures and makes it obvious that the Treasury is in no condition to undertake increases in expenditures to be made before June 30th. It is necessary, therefore, during the present session to refrain from new appropriations for immediate outlay, or if such are absolutely required, to provide for them by new revenue. Otherwise, we shall reach the end of the year with the unthinkable result of an unbalanced budget. For the first time during my term of office, we faced that contingency. I am certain that the Congress would not pass, and I should not feel warranted in approving legislation which would involve us in that financial disgrace. On the whole, the finances of the government are most satisfactory. Last year, the national debt was reduced about $906 million. The refunding and retirement of the second and third Liberty loans have just been brought to a successful conclusion, which will save about $75 million a year in interest. The unpaid balance has been arranged in maturities convenient for carrying out our permanent debt-paying program. The enormous savings made have not been at the expense of any legitimate public need. The government plant has been kept up and many improvements are underway, while its service is fully manned and the general efficiency of operation has increased. We have been enabled to undertake many new enterprises. Among these are the adjusted compensation of the veterans of the World War, which is costing us $112 million a year. Amortizing our liability to the civil service retirement funds, $20 million. Increase of expenditures for rivers and harbors, including flood control, $43 million. Public buildings, $47 million. In 1928, we spent $50 million in the adjustment of war claims and alien property. These are examples of a large list of items. Foreign relations. When we turn from our domestic affairs to our foreign relations, we likewise perceive peace and progress. The 6th International Conference of American States was held at Havana last winter. It contributed to a better understanding and cooperation among the nations. 11 important conventions were signed and 71 resolutions passed. Pursuant to the plan then adopted, this government has invited the other 20 nations of this hemisphere to a conference on conciliation and arbitration, which meets in Washington on December 10th. All the nations have accepted, and the expectation is justified that important progress will be made in methods for resolving international differences by means of arbitration. During the year, we have signed 11 new arbitration treaties, and 22 more are under negotiation. Nicaragua. When a destructive and bloody revolution lately broke out in Nicaragua, at the earnest and repeated entreaties of its government, I dispatched our marine forces there to protect the lives and interests of our citizens. To compose the contending parties, I sent there Colonel Henry L. Stimson, former Secretary of War and now Governor General of the Philippine Islands, who secured an agreement that warfare should cease, a national election should be held, and peace should be restored. Both parties conscientiously carried out this agreement, with the exception of a few bandits who later mostly surrendered or left the country. President Diaz appointed Brigadier General Frank R. McCoy, United States Army, president of the election board, which included also one member of each political party. A free and fair election has been held and has worked out so successfully that both parties have joined in requesting like cooperation from this country at the election 4 years hence, to which I have refrained from making any commitments, although our country must be gratified at such an exhibition of success and appreciation. Nicaragua is regaining its prosperity and has taken a long step in the direction of peaceful self-government. Tacna Arica. The long-standing differences between Chile and Peru have been sufficiently composed so that diplomatic relations have been resumed by the exchange of ambassadors. Negotiations are hopefully proceeding as this is written for the final adjustment of the differences over their disputed territory. Mexico. Our relations with Mexico are on a more satisfactory basis than at any time since their revolution. Many misunderstandings have been resolved, and the most frank and friendly negotiations promise a final adjustment of all unsettled questions. It is exceedingly gratifying that Ambassador Morrow has been able to bring our two neighboring countries, which have so many interests in common, to a position of confidence in each other and of respect for mutual sovereign rights. China. The situation in China, which a few months ago was so threatening as to call for the dispatch of a large additional force, has been much composed. The nationalist government has established itself over the country and promulgated a new organic law announcing a program intended to promote the political and economic welfare of the people. We have recognized this government, encouraged its progress, and have negotiated a treaty restoring to China complete tariff autonomy and guaranteeing our citizens against discriminations. Our trade in that quarter is increasing, and our forces are being reduced. Greek and Austrian debts. Pending before the Congress is a recommendation for the settlement of the Greek debt and the Austrian debt. Both of these are comparatively small, and our country can afford to be generous. The rehabilitation of these countries awaits their settlement. There would also be advantages to our trade. We could scarcely afford to be the only nation that refuses the relief that Austria seeks. The Congress has already granted Austria a long-time moratorium, which it is understood will be waived and immediate payments begun on her debt on the same basis which we have extended to other countries. Peace Treaty. One of the most important treaties ever laid before the Senate of the United States will be that which the 15 nations recently signed at Paris, and to which 44 other nations have declared their intention to adhere, renouncing war as a national policy and agreeing to resort only to peaceful means for the adjustment of international differences. It is the most solemn declaration against war, the most positive adherence to peace that it is possible for sovereign nations to make. It does not supersede our inalienable sovereign right and duty of national defense, or undertake to commit us before the event to any mode of action which the Congress might decide to be wise, if ever the treaty should be broken. But it is a new standard in the world, around which can rally the informed and enlightened opinion of nations, to prevent their governments from being forced into hostile action by the temporary outbreak of international animosities. The observance of this covenant, so simple and so straightforward, promises more for the peace of the world than any other agreement ever negotiated among the nations. National defense. The first duty of our government to its own citizens and foreigners within its borders is the preservation of order. Unless and until that duty is met, a government is not even eligible for recognition among the family of nations. The advancement of world civilization, likewise, is dependent upon that order among the people of different countries which we term peace. To ensure our citizens against the infringement of their legal rights at home and abroad, to preserve order, liberty, and peace by making the law supreme, we have an army and a navy. Both of these are organized for defensive purposes. Our army could not be much reduced, but does not need to be increased. Such new housing and repairs as are necessary are underway, and the 6-year program in aviation is being put into effect in both branches of our service. Our Navy, according to generally accepted standards, is deficient in cruisers. We have 10 comparatively new vessels, 22 that are old, and 8 to be built. It is evident that renewals and replacements must be provided. This matter was thoroughly canvassed at the last session of the Congress and does not need restatement. The bill before the Senate with the elimination of the time clause should be passed. We have no intention of competing with any other country. This building program is for necessary replacements and to meet our needs for defense. The cost of national defense is stupendous. It has increased $118 million in the past 4 years. The estimated expenditure for 1930 is $668 million. While this is made up of many items, it is, after all, mostly dependent upon numbers. Our defensive needs do not call for any increase in the number of men in the Army or the Navy. We have reached the limit of what we ought to expend for that purpose. I wish to repeat again for the benefit of the timid and the suspicious that this country is neither militaristic nor imperialistic. Many people at home and abroad who constantly make this charge are the same ones who are even more solicitous to have us extend assistance to foreign countries. When such assistance is granted, the inevitable result is that we have foreign interests. For us to refuse the customary support and protection of such interests would be in derogation of the sovereignty of this nation. Our largest foreign interests are in the British Empire, France, and Italy. Because we are constantly solicitous for those interests, I doubt if anyone would suppose that those countries feel we harbor toward them any militaristic or imperialistic design. As for smaller countries, we certainly do not want any of them. We are more anxious than they are to have their sovereignty respected. Our entire influence is in behalf of their independence. Cuba stands as a witness to our adherence to this principle. The position of this government relative to the limitation of armaments, the results already secured, and the developments up to the present time are so well known to the Congress that they do not require any restatement. Veterans. The magnitude of our present system of veterans relief is without precedent, and the results have been far-reaching. For years, a service pension has been granted to the Grand Army and lately to the survivors of the Spanish-American War. At the time we entered the World War, however, Congress departed from the usual pension system followed by our government. 11 years have elapsed since our laws were first enacted, initiating a system of compensation, rehabilitation, hospitalization, and insurance for the disabled of the World War and their dependents. The administration of all the laws concerning relief has been a difficult task, but it can safely be stated that these measures have omitted nothing in their desire to deal generously and humanely. We should continue to foster this system and provide all the facilities necessary for adequate care. It is the conception of our government that the pension roll is an honor roll. It should include all those who are justly entitled to its benefits, but exclude all others. Annual expenditures for all forms of veterans relief now approximate $765 million and are increasing from year to year. It is doubtful if the peak of expenditures will be reached even under present legislation for some time yet to come. Further amendments to the existing law will be suggested by the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, the Disabled American Veterans of the World War, and other like organizations, and it may be necessary for administrative purposes or in order to remove some existing inequalities in the present law to make further changes. I am sure that such recommendations as may be submitted to the Congress will receive your careful consideration. But because of the vast expenditure now being made each year, with every assurance that it will increase, and because of the great liberality of the existing law, the proposal of any additional legislation dealing with this subject should receive most searching scrutiny from the Congress. You are familiar with the suggestion that the various public agencies now dealing with matters of veterans relief be consolidated in one government department. Some advantages to this plan seem apparent, especially in the simplification of administration found in the opportunity of bringing about a greater uniformity in the application of veterans relief. I recommend that a survey be made by the proper committees of Congress dealing with this subject in order to determine whether legislation to secure this consolidation is desirable. Agriculture. The past year has been marked by notable, though not uniform, improvement in agriculture. The general purchasing power of farm products and the volume of production have advanced. This means not only further progress in overcoming the price disparity into which agriculture was plunged in 1920-1921, but also increased efficiency on the part of farmers and a well-grounded confidence in the future of agriculture. The livestock industry has attained the best balance for many years and is prospering conspicuously. Dairymen, beef producers, and poultrymen are receiving substantially larger returns than last year. Cotton, although lower in price than at this time last year, was produced in greater volume, and the prospect for cotton incomes is favorable. But progress is never uniform in a vast and highly diversified agriculture or industry. Cash grains, hay, tobacco, and potatoes will bring somewhat smaller returns this year than last. Present indications are, however, that the gross farm income will be somewhat larger than the crop year 1927-1928, when the total was $12,253,000,000. The corresponding figure for 1926-1927 was $12,127,000,000, and in 1925-1926, $12,670,000,000. Still better results would have been secured this year had there not been an undue increase in the production of certain crops. This is particularly true of potatoes, which have sold at an unremunerative price or at a loss as a direct result of overexpansion of acreage. The present status of agriculture, although greatly improved over that of a few years ago, bespeaks the need of further improvement which calls for determined effort of farmers themselves, encouraged and assisted by wise public policy. The government has been and must continue to be alive to the needs of agriculture. In the past 8 years, more constructive legislation of direct benefit to agriculture has been adopted than during any other period. The Department of Agriculture has been broadened and reorganized to ensure greater efficiency. The department is laying greater stress on the economic and business phases of agriculture. It is lending every possible assistance to cooperative marketing associations. Regulatory and research work have been segregated in order that each field may be served more effectively. I cannot too strongly commend in the field of fact-finding the research work of the Department of Agriculture and the state experiment stations. The department now receives annually $4 million more for research than in 1921. In addition, the funds paid to the states for experimentation purposes under the Purnell Act constitute an annual increase in federal payments to state agricultural experiment stations of $2,400,000 over the amount appropriated in 1921. The program of support for research may wisely be continued and expanded. Since 1921, we have appropriated nearly an additional $2 million for extension work, and this sum is to be increased next year under authorization by the Capper-Ketchum Act. The surplus problem. While these developments in fundamental research, regulation, and dissemination of agricultural information are of distinct help to agriculture, additional effort is needed. The surplus problem demands attention. As emphasized in my last message, the government should assume no responsibility in normal times for crop surplus, clearly due to overextended acreage. The government should, however, provide reliable information as a guide to private effort, and in this connection, fundamental research on prospective supply and demand as a guide to production and marketing should be encouraged. Expenditure of public funds to bring in more new land should have most searching scrutiny, so long as our farmers face unsatisfactory prices for crops and livestock produced on land already under cultivation. Every proper effort should be made to put land to uses for which it is adapted. The reforestation of land best suited for timber production is progressing and should be encouraged. And to this end, the forest taxation inquiry was instituted to afford a practical guide for public policy. Improvement has been made in grazing regulation in the forest reserves not only to protect the ranges, but to preserve the soil from erosion. Similar action is urgently needed to protect other public lands which are now overgrazed and rapidly eroding. Temporary expedients, though sometimes capable of appeasing the demands of the moment, cannot permanently solve the surplus problem and might seriously aggravate it. Hence, putting the government directly into business, subsidies, and price fixing, and the alluring promises of political action as a substitute for private initiative should be avoided. The government should aid in promoting orderly marketing and in handling surpluses clearly due to weather and seasonal conditions. As a beginning, there should be created a federal farm board consisting of able and experienced men empowered to advise producers' associations in establishing central agencies or stabilization corporations to handle surpluses, to seek more economical means of merchandising, and to aid the producer in securing returns according to the aim of his product. A revolving loan fund should be provided for the necessary financing until these agencies shall have developed means of financing their operations through regularly constituted credit institutions. Such a bill should carry authority for raising the money, by loans or otherwise, necessary to meet the expense, as the Treasury has no surplus. Agriculture has lagged behind industry in achieving that unity of effort which modern economic life demands. The cooperative movement, which is gradually building the needed organization, is in harmony with public interest and therefore merits public encouragement. The responsibility of the states. Important phases of public policy related to agriculture lie within the sphere of the states. While successive reductions in federal taxes have relieved most farmers of direct taxes to the national government, state and local levies have become a serious burden. This problem needs immediate and thorough study with a view to correction at the earliest possible moment. It will have to be made largely by the states themselves. Commerce. It is desirable that the government continue its helpful attitude toward American business. The activities of the Department of Commerce have contributed largely to the present satisfactory position in our international trade, which has reached about $9 billion annually. There should be no slackening of effort in that direction. It is also important that the Department's assistance to domestic commerce be continued. There is probably no way in which the government can aid sound economic progress more effectively than by cooperation with our businessmen to reduce wastes in distribution. Commercial aeronautics. Continued progress in civil aviation is most gratifying. Demands for airplanes and motors have taxed both the industry and the licensing and inspection service of the Department of Commerce to their capacity. While the compulsory licensing provisions of the Air Commerce Act apply only to equipment and personnel engaged in interstate and foreign commerce, a federal license may be procured by anyone possessing the necessary qualifications. State legislation, local airport regulations, and insurance requirements make such a license practically indispensable. This results in uniformity of regulation and increased safety in operation, which are essential to aeronautical development. Over 17,000 young men and women have now applied for federal air pilots' licenses or permits. More than 80% of them applied during the past year. Our national airway system exceeds 14,000 miles in length and has 7,500 miles lighted for night operations. Provision has been made for lighting 4,000 miles more during the current fiscal year and equipping an equal mileage with radio facilities. 3/4 of our people are now served by these routes. With the rapid growth of airmail, express, and passenger service, this new transportation medium is daily becoming a more important factor in commerce. It is noteworthy that this development has taken place without governmental subsidies. Commercial passenger flights operating on schedule have reached 13,000 miles per day. During the next fortnight, this nation will entertain the nations of the world in a celebration of the 25th anniversary of the first successful airplane flight. The credit for this epoch-making achievement belongs to a citizen of our own country, Orville Wright. Cuban Parcel Post. I desire to repeat my recommendation of an earlier message, that Congress enact the legislation necessary to make permanent the Parcel Post Convention with Cuba, both as a facility to American commerce and as a measure of equity to Cuba in the one class of goods which that country can send here by parcel post without detriment to our own trade. End of section 9.